Hey guys, it's Ann Yorks from the Flower Box, and I'm calling all the wizards and muggles because this week we are making these magical wizard cookies. Grab your wands and your piping bags. It's time to decorate 6 cookies. We have 3 wizards. We have a really cool platform 9 3/4, the owl with the letter, and the wizard talking hat. This is such a fun set. So let's cookie it up. Take a look at my sketches for this set. I love to trace the cutters and sketch out each one, really thinking through what icing colors I need, and this visual helps me plan for how much of each color I'll need. So if you're looking for the icing color guide, check out the blog post that goes with this tutorial. You'll find a link down below, and I have a list of all the colors that I'm using. To start off these cookies, I actually want to make the Wizard Boy's glasses. So you can see I have these little glasses with eyes hiding behind a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to outline the glasses first. I want to really see the rim on the glasses, so I actually have a tip number 3 on that black icing piping bag. And then I'm going to go back in and flood in those glasses and add the eyes. This is a wet on wet on wet. So I'm adding the white, then I'll add a large dot of the black, and then I'm going to come back in with my white and add an itty bitty dot of white. That's the catch light in the eye. I really feel like that brings the cookie to life. Now these need to set up for at least 12 hours just so that the icing is nice and firm. And then this will make it easy to add those accents onto the cookie. Let's take a look at outlining the cookie. I have a medium brown icing in my icing bag. I have tip number 2 on the bag for these outlines, and I'm just outlining that hairline. Now I generally know where that hairline is going to be because I sketched out my cookies, but the kit comes with a backer card. This is a photo example of each of the cookies, and I hope that helps you just plan your designs as you recreate these cookies in your kitchen. Now that I have those icing areas outlined, I'm flooding in the hair section first, and then I'm going to come back in. I have sienna flood icing in my icing bag. I'm going to generously flood that in, but here is where we're going to use those royal icing transfers that I just showed you how to make. While this icing is still wet, I just kind of want to get everything tapped into place. And while it's still wet, I'm going to add those glasses to the face. So I'm going to just gently drop that on. A little tip is make sure you look for those catch lights. Make sure those catch lights are going in the same direction. Typically, I have them in the top right corner of the eye. And if you need to even those out or line those up at all, you can always nudge those pieces into place using the boo-boo stick that is in your cookie decorating kit. Now this cookie has some pretty simple details. I'm going to add the bridge on the glasses, and then I want to add that iconic lightning bolt to the forehead and a cute little smile. I'm adding those details using a tip number 1.5 and then just a little dot for the nose. If you really want to bring that hair to the foreground, I'm going to outline that using the brown icing and tip number 2. Don't forget those little ears behind. Cute little accent, but it really finishes off the face. That's the star of the show. Let's take a look at one of these other designs. I love this platform 9 3/4 cookie. I am going to be airbrushing this cookie and stenciling with some icing, but first I want to get the base set up. So I am actually outlining that cookie, tip number 2, and I'm using this scarlet red icing, and then I'm flooding generously in with that white flood. Because I'm airbrushing that brick color, I do want the outline to match. I just feel like it gives such a nice finish to the cookie. Now I'm going to airbrush, and I don't want a super bright red for my airbrush color. So I'm adding a couple of drops of red into a little mixing dish, and then I add another drop of brown to kind of take away some of the brightness. And then I want to lighten it just a little bit, add some shine. So I put a little bit, drop or two of the Chef Master Metallic Pearl. Because I'm using a color that has a metallic, I want to use that on the highest speed. So I set my cordless airbrush all the way to high, and I'm ready to airbrush those colors onto the background. I have my brick stencil clicked into the Stencil Genie, and I'm just going to give an even pass as I go across the cookie. I love how that red and brown mixed to create that beautiful brick color. Now allow that to dry just for 15 minutes. You don't want the next stencil to stick to that freshly airbrushed color, so just make sure that surface is dry. And then I put the platform 9 3/4 stencil on top. I'm using some stiff black icing with the scraper. You'll find that scraper and these stencils in the Wizard kit. I just scrape that over and lift up, and you have this beautiful, really impressive cookie that's kind of pretty easy to do because the stencils did all of the work. Now, speaking of color mixing, I know I just showed you how I mixed icing colors to make that brick red for that cookie. This scarlet color that I'm using on the Snowy Owl's scarf is also color mixture. I use 3 dots of super red and a dot of brown to create that really fun color. I feel like it really matches with that gold color very well. Once I have all these icing areas outlined using tip number 2, I'm ready to flood in alternating areas. So I have the head and the belly, and I want to add some feather detail. I have a tip number 1.5 on my gray piping icing bag. I really want those details to stay firm and in place. So I do have piping icing in there, and that is going to fall underneath the scarf. So that's why we add that while the white icing is still wet. Let's start filling in this scarf. I'm just adding blocks of the scarlet red color. While that icing is still wet, I'm going in and adding blocks of gold. That'll just create the fun stripes on the scarf. Once you have that area flooded in, you can fill in the wings and also the envelope down below. Now, this just happens to be my favorite cookie from this set. I love the colors and the design. It's so cute. I can just imagine myself getting a letter in the mail inviting me to a wizard school. We are ready to add some details. So I'm using that black flood to add the eyes with the little white catchlight. That's just a little itty bitty dot. And I'm using the flood icing to add the beak onto the owl. And I'll also use that same icing to add the toes. I do want to create the section that is folding over the scarf. So I am using piping icing to outline those wavy lines. And again, I'm just going to add those blocks of colors using the scarlet and gold icing. I sized down my tip on the white to a tip number 1 to keep those details nice and fine. So I'm just going to add some envelope details, and then I'm using the gold to add the toes. I like to add 2 toes first, let those set up just a little bit, and then you can add the toe in the center. That will help keep those nice and distinct. Now, this step is optional, but I did want a little bit of spotted feather on the top of the forehead. So I'm using a black food marker. You could also just use your black icing as well and just touch down, but I like that little detail on there. Here's the wax seal on the envelope with piping icing, and then I'm ready to add the 3rd little toe in the middle. This is such a cute owl, definitely perfect for this set. Let's take a look at this talking wizard hat. I know I have always dreamed about what house I would be sorted into, and this is the hat that makes those dreams come true. So to add the black area first, that's kind of in the background, that will fill in the eyes and the mouth section. So just a little bit of flood icing that I flattened down with my boo-boo stick, and then I'll start using the dark buckeye brown to fill in and outline the rest of the hat. Notice how that outline goes about a centimeter down below into the brim. That just gives a little bit of movement and motion to this wrinkly old leather talking hat. Flood in the base first and allow that section to fully set up before you come back in and flood in the large top section of the hat. I do want to see that accent line at the top where the hat is folding over. So notice how I'm not super close touching that area. I'm going to just tap that into place so that we make sure that that line does not get covered up. And that's perfect. Once dry, we can add some simple details. This is an accent cookie with this set, so I'm just adding some folded lines across the top, around the forehead, and down at the base, just to give the look that this hat is kind of moving or folded over, or maybe even talking and sorting. Now it's time to make a really cute wizard girl. And again, these cookie cutters come with a backer card, so you have an image of each of these wizard faces. And I love the inspiration for this particular cookie. Notice how her hairline bumps into the face line. That just creates a really fun bang area. And we're going to flood in her face first using just a little bit of care going around the bangs and then generously flooding in that face. Once that face has a chance to dry, we can go in and flood the rest of the hair. We're going to flood in this entire section, but again, if you want to see some of those accent lines visible after the icing dries, I suggest just taking some care as you go around those lines and really using one of your tools, a boo-boo stick or a cookie scribe, to tap that icing into place. That way that line doesn't get covered up by the flood. Once that cookie has a chance to dry, it's time to add the details. And we've been adding the eyes the same way, using that flood icing. That'll keep the eye nice and round. And then a little dot of white, typically in the top right, to add that catch light. Size down the tip on your black to a 1.5, add a little nose. And if you want to really bring those bangs to the foreground, go ahead and pipe an accent line. That just brings it in front. And you have a cute wizard girl. But we're missing one of the best friends in this trio. And of course, this is the wizard's best friend with such a fun hairstyle. I am using the Sugar Art Pumpkin Orange gel color to create this particular icing color. And it just kind of is perfect for this cookie. And it also adds a nice pop of color for this set that has lots of browns in it. So go ahead and outline that hair. Again, I love to use tip number 2 for my outlines. I'm flooding in the face using the sienna, and I just want to allow that icing to set up and dry before I come back in and flood in the hairline. You can find these cookie cutters in our shop on flowerbox.com. They're available as singles. You can also get them in the Magical Wizard Kit. Plus, we've started adding STL files to our site as well. If you have a 3D printer at home, you can purchase the file and print your own cutter at home. Now it's time to add this final face, and this one's really cute because not only do we add the little eyes with the catch light, we're going to add the little smile using that black piping icing and a little dot of icing for ears and also for the nose. But I love that this little guy has a couple of freckles too. I'm using that black food marker again But you can also just use the tip of your black icing bag as well if you don't have a food marker at home. And that is just such a fun cookie. Really the final perfect cookie to make this set. I hope you guys loved watching this tutorial to see these 3 wizards, the owl, the platform cookie, and the wizard hat. And if you're interested in recreating them, check out flowerbox.com for that magical wizard kit. If you have any questions about how I created these cookies, maybe I didn't answer in this tutorial, pop them below. I would love to help you out so that you can bring a little magic into your kitchen. Until next time, happy decorating!